Welcome to the channel, Ranting and Raving. We're going to take a look today at the latest news that happened for the New Orleans Saints, which is they hope, the ascension from mediocrity to competency at the quarterback position with a very small but not non-existent possibility of above average. And you can win with above average. So the Saints have signed Derek Carr. Um, their willingness to agree to compensation with the Raiders clearly had some amount of work in their favor, allowed them to be the first ones to talk to Carr, to show the most interest. Um, they were really competing with the Jets as far as the best option, best opportunity for him. Obviously, the Jets have a better head coach. They have a younger roster. They have more cap space. However, they're also in a division with the Bills and the Dolphins. And you're playing outside more often. In New Orleans, you have a coach that he's comfortable with, has a personal relationship with, although who is not great, but a very good defense, although aging. Um, you still have lots of young, talented weapons, and you have a dome, a weak division, and the opportunity to compete in the NFC. So Derek Carr made a business decision, and the Saints handled their business. It's essentially a 3-year deal. It's really a 2-year deal, but it's basically a 2 to 3 year deal as is. But there's certainly options for it to go to 4 if he plays well. He's not going anywhere. If he doesn't, the Saints have options. But basically, what they've done is I can't say they've extended their window because they've been pretty mediocre to bad the last 2 years, but they've extended the opportunity to have a window. So this is going to be a two-part uh, video. First part will come out today. Next part will come out tomorrow. Today's is the Optimist. What I think as of right now, before the draft, before free agency, just as the Saints are currently constituted, what is the best case scenario for the Saints? And I think the best case scenario is making the NFC Championship game and getting dusted by the Eagles or the 49ers, who are the two best teams in the NFC right now. And I'd be perfectly happy with that. That would be great, especially considering the way the last 2 years have gone. Now, how do we get there? So let's talk a little bit about who Derek Carr is as a player. There's a lot of misconception around him. I think a lot of that comes simply from the fact that he played on the Raiders. And the Raiders are as much of a punchline in the NFL as the Browns are and as the Saints were before Sean Payton. They're really, really, really bad organization. So Derek Carr has never played with a top 10. I think he hasn't even played with a top 15 defense ever in his career. He's had a never-ending series of offensive coordinators and really head coaches as well. So not a lot of continuity. Now he has had some weapons and has done good things with those weapons. Carr is he's a little bit of an enigma as far as at times he can be a very aggressive player. He was willing to push the ball down the field, take high risk throws. He has the arm talent to make those throws and make them fairly consistently. Um, a little bit, like a Matthew Stafford, different players. Carr's a better athlete than Stafford, doesn't quite have the same arm talent, definitely isn't as aggressive as Stafford. Um, but that also, kind of shows out in the interception side. While he isn't, Brady or Rodgers as far as, just not allowing themselves to throw picks almost ever, he's certainly not a guy like, at times Drew was, before the last few years in New Orleans where he became really this mega efficient, dink and dunk passer. Drew was a gunslinger and a risk taker, and he would trust his guys, and sometimes that would backfire. Usually 2 or 3 games a year, he would have turnover binges. Carr can have that. Any quarterback can have that, but it's certainly something that happens less than you would see from, some others. Like I said before, pretty good athlete, mobile, not necessarily going to run for a ton of yards, but absolutely can extend plays. And he has not only the arm talent to drive the ball down the field, much better than Andy Dalton could, Um, but also he has the ability to do it on the move, which is something really that Jameis struggles with. Jameis's arm talent is off the charts, but once he's on the move and his feet are moving, that's really where he's always gotten into a lot of trouble. Balls sail, things are off target, platform shifts. That's where he can get into a lot of trouble. That or, rushing throws and making bad decisions. Carr's not really that guy. Carr also, we're being optimistic here. Carr's best year by far was under John Gruden. John Gruden and Sean Payton have very similar backgrounds and influences. You could accurately say a lot of Payton's system is inspired by a lot of what Gruden has done, and that was Carr's best year. And Pete Carmichael is basically he's a Sean Payton clone, but with like a droopy eye and like a lip that doesn't really quite work, and he may have a third chin. So it's not a great clone, but it's got some of the attributes there. You can kind of see the resemblance. Basically, he's just nowhere remotely close as Sean is a game day caller, but as an offensive mind and from a concept standpoint, everything we've ever seen and all the reports we've ever seen pretty much say like he's going to do a lot of the same things that Sean would have wanted to do. And Carr is the type of quarterback who can go to the line of scrimmage and audible out of something. And one of the things the Saints were always famous for is a lot of times with Drew would go to the line of scrimmage with two plays, and he could switch over to the other play at any time. And sometimes he would switch from a run to a pass, and sometimes from a pass to a run, or sometimes from a pass to a different pass, depending on what he sees. Dalton wasn't doing that. He's never really been the guy to do that. Carr can do that. Can he do it at the level of Drew? No. But Drew's one of the 6, 7-ish best quarterbacks in the history of the game. That's an unfair standard. Can he do it well enough that you can win with him under the right circumstances? Yes. Yes, you can. If you have Rashid Shaheed and he makes any kind of leap from his rookie year, which I fully expect him to, and Chris Olave and he makes any kind of leap from his rookie year, which I fully expect him to, and you retain Juwan Johnson, which I expect them to, if you do those things, Carr has enough weapons to throw to absolutely challenge defenses, but still play a ball control style of offense. And certainly put up more points than they did last year, and more reliably than they did last year. Now, if you take what is looking like a really good running back class and you get one or maybe even two guys out of it, your ability to do that goes up even more. Especially you get some guys who have some home run ability. Um, so you put those elements together. Again, we're obviously talking right now before free agency, before the draft, but you're looking from a vision standpoint. What can they do with the roster? Is the defense going to take a step back? Probably a bit, unless one of these wastes of space at defensive end, not named Cam Jordan, step up and actually start producing. Looking at you, Peyton Turner. Um, or you keep Caden Ellis and you just stick him at outside linebacker and go get the quarterback. Um, unless one of those things happen, I don't see the defense being as good, but I also don't necessarily see it falling off a cliff either, unless all the linebackers get hurt or something like that happens, which that'll tank almost any defense. Um, so you have a above average defense, and you've got good weapons, and you have an above average quarterback. He's top 12 to 16 depending on the day. On Derek Carr's best days, he's as good as Dak. On his worst days, he's not. And that's why you have a guy like Dak above him, is he's a little bit more consistent with when he's really good to great. Carr's one of the guys who's led the league in fourth quarter comebacks. This is again, we're just talking the positives here. Um, he's not afraid of the moment. He's not afraid to ramp it up to another gear when he has to. One of the big things that the Saints struggled with really the last 2 years, 2 years ago more than last year, but still last year was a major problem. If they were down more than three, it felt like you were dead in the water. And you just can't have that from your offense. It puts way too much pressure on your defense. It shifts your margin of error way too far. It's just simply not sustainable. Carr is a guy who has a well-established history of being comfortable, coming from behind, of knowing how to play under that, of rising under the occasion, of making plays. And the Saints do have some playmakers. Now, let's talk the extreme best case scenario, which, let me be really clear, Dennis Allen is the Saints head coach. Until and unless Dennis Allen shows that he is something other than Dennis Allen as a head coach, and by this point we have so much evidence of it that this is, I have a better chance of dunking than this does of happening. But let's say Michael Thomas comes back, you re-sign Juwan Johnson, Olave and Shaheed both take a leap, the offensive line is at least solid throughout the year, and you keep Caden Ellis, Peyton Turner steps up, whatever happens, the defensive line plays better, the secondary plays just as well, Taylor's your outside corner, you fix nickel corner. It's not impossible to do all this in a single offseason. It's hard, but it's not impossible. So let's say that happens. The Saints are in a very vulnerable division. You win the division. You host a playoff game. You beat a very beatable team. There's two really, really good teams in the NFC. Other than them, everybody else is 100% beatable. You win that game. You go to the next round. You squeeze out a win there. You're in the NFC Championship game. Now, in this hypothetical, you have Michael Thomas. Is there a universe where Michael Thomas, by the end of the year, is healthy and is back to being old Mike, and Derek Carr just starts spamming the Michael Thomas button the same way Drew Brees used to, and the defense plays lights out, and, let's say they're playing the 49ers, who may or may not have a quarterback. The Eagles, I don't see them having any chance against, simply because they destroy Dennis's defense every single time. Until Dennis Allen decides that he actually likes fast people on his defense, they'll never have a chance against those guys. But, hypothetically, you're playing the Niners. Is it possible to beat them? Especially if, they have some of the same injury luck they've had, or, their quarterback, throws some picks, something like that, and go to the Super Bowl? It's not zero. Before they signed Derek Carr, it was zero. There was no scenario where they were going to Super Bowl with Jameis Winston under center, especially with the relationship between him and Dennis, because he was never touching the field. And it was less than zero. It was negative with Andy Dalton. Derek Carr is a good enough quarterback. He can play at an Eli Manning level. If he gets hot at the right time and you put him with the right playmakers, and the defense gets hot at the right time and you run into the right matchups, can it happen? Yes. Do I expect it to happen? Absolutely not. Do I think it's likely to happen? No. But could it happen? Yes. And is it something where I could absolutely see them, in the best case scenario, winning one or two playoff games? Yeah. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, again, all of that comes with the caveat of Dennis Allen has to show that he's something other than Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen has to run a organized, well-prepared football team. Dennis Allen has to make adjustments organizationally. Dennis Allen has to make adjustments on the defense. Pete Carmichael has to be something he's never been on the offense. A lot of things have to work out for that scenario to happen. But it was not even a possibility before they signed Derek Carr. And Derek Carr is in the same talent tier as Matthew Stafford. I think he's better than Kirk Cousins. I know he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the gap between Derek Carr and Dak Prescott is incredibly small. I think the quality of the rosters and the quality of coaching that those two players have had is very large. I don't think the two players are that dissimilar. Dak's better, but it's not by a huge margin. And that's something that you can win with if you have a good team and a good roster and they're well coached. But we're being optimistic, so we're not going to talk about that anymore. Um, but yeah, that's where I stand on it. I think it was the only scenario from this offseason where I would not be actively rooting for the Saints to lose as many games as possible, to fire Dennis Allen and get the best possible quarterback in next year's draft. My best case scenario for the season in any scenario other than where they signed Derek Carr was going to be that. Because no one enjoys several years of just pungent mediocrity. And that's what DA ball is. It's pungent mediocrity. But you still have the team that Sean built. You still have the culture that Sean built. You still have all of these vets. You add a talented quarterback. There's an outside shot. And they're in a crap division in a crap conference right now. So it is not in any way outside of the realm of possibility that they could exceed expectations. We'll see if they do. Appreciate you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that wonderful YouTube stuff if you feel like it. And like I said, tomorrow we'll talk about the pessimist.